Shu is an ugly, miserable orphan who was abandoned by his mother and bullied by everyone. However, everything changes when he unlocks a cheat system that converts his enemies' fear into power, so he uses it to level up, become the strongest, and get revenge. The story begins 18 years ago, with little Shu's mother cautiously walking through the dark, rainy streets until she sees an orphanage and hides there. When the matron finds her on the front porch, she gets confused, but the woman hurriedly hands Shu over along with a spirit pendant and leaves to get milk. Years later, Shu grows into a boy who is constantly bullied at the orphanage, until one day, when a fellow orphan girl named Xiaoyu notices what's happening and reports it, saving him. From that point on, Shu and Xiaoyu grew so close that when Shu officially became an adult, he adopted Xiaoyu as his foster sister. Life finally becomes normal for them, until one day, while he and Xiaoyu stroll through a festival, Shu overhears a couple talking about people awakening strange superpowers, which he recalls hearing on the news. However, just before he gives it any thought, Xiaoyu spots a fire magician throwing fire from his bare hands and drags him to watch the show with her. Getting there, Shu gets blasted in the face by the magician's fire, but right before it burns him, time slows down, and he suddenly finds himself in an alternate dimension. Thanks to his mother's spirit pendant, he quickly snaps out of the trance and becomes seriously confused. As he continues watching, Shu becomes hooked on the magician's skill and searches for his hidden prop. When he finds none, he slowly starts to wonder if the magician has superpowers. To confirm his suspicions, he and Xiaoyu sneak backstage after the show to learn the magician's secrets, but when they get there, they find the magician surrounded by 4 mysterious men in black. Scared, they quickly rush to hide, but then the leader of the group, Fei, suddenly shoots the magician in the neck with a tranquilizer dart. As they move the body, Xiaoyu suddenly makes a sound that alerts the men, and Shu's heart sinks to his stomach. However, to avoid getting shot, he nervously tells Fei they got lost looking for the bathroom. Fei knows he's obviously lying, but since he doesn't want any more smoke, he lets them go and just continues kidnapping the magician like it's another Tuesday. On the way home, Shu realizes that he was right about the magician having superpowers and spends his evening wondering how any of this is even possible. Later that night, when Shu realizes they're out of food, he heads to the store around the block to get some. However, on the way there, he gets lost in thought, gets hit by truck con, and finds himself lying in a pool of his blood. At the point of his death, a system screen suddenly appears, causing his mother's spirit pendant to crack open and release all its spiritual energy into his body and revive him. After, Shu gets up like a ghost from Tsushima and demands that Truck Kun's driver pay him or feel the wrath of all those souls he's isekai'd in the past. Truck Kun's driver pisses his pants, but as he runs back to his truck to escape, Shu notices stat gain pop-ups appearing on him and a few other terrified bystanders, but just ignores them to buy his food. When he gets home, the same system screen from earlier appears before him, but this time, it shows all the stat points he got earlier. Curious, he checks out other system functions till he figures out that the stat points are used as currency in his system to buy upgrades and can only be earned every time he pisses off or scares people. Excited, he spends everything to spin the system's wheel of fortune, and he wins a stellar fruit and a magical nursery poem. After eating the fruit, he recites the poem, and his consciousness is transported to an alternate dimension similar to space. However, when he calls out to Xiaoyu, she still answers him like he's in the next room, so he decides to annoy her, which gives him more points. Later, Shu watches the news with Xiaoyu broadcast about a fire outbreak at a nearby shopping center, when suddenly, he feels a surge of negative energy around the house. Curious, he climbs up the roof to ensure they're not in danger, but when he finds Fei and his lackey jumping from roof to roof like ninjas, he quickly hides to avoid getting spotted. Unfortunately, before Shu successfully hides himself, Fei and his lackey hear the rustling sound he's making and investigate it until they find him. At that time, Shu had already found a box of radishes on the roof, so when Fei asks him why he's chilling on a roof in the middle of the night, Shu lies again, telling them that since he lives there, he climbed up to pick up the radishes, and they let him go since he's not posing any threats. Immediately, Shu returns to his house. He and Xiaoyu hear someone falling into their snowy yard outside, and rush outside to check it out, only to realize that the said person is the fire magician from the festival. Shu suspects that the man, being a fire magician, might have escaped the men in black and caused the fire at the shopping center in the news, but since the guy appears dead, he tells Xiaoyu to call emergency services so they can take his body to the morgue. Hearing this, the magician, who happens to be playing dead, twitches in disgust, and Shu, after earning some negative points for trolling him, realizes that the dumb idiot's just pretending. Knowing this, he continues to troll the man to accumulate more social credit and negative aura points. However, at one point, the magician wakes up, plays the helpless Disney princess to get Shu to drop his guard, and makes several attempts to burn him from the inside out with his fire superpowers. However, when Shu's awakened powers block the idiot's powers from igniting inside him, the magician realizes he's being dumb, so he apologizes, earns Shu more negative emotion points, and leaves in shame. Afterwards, the duo returns inside their house, and Xiaoyu catches a bad cold while she teases her dumb big brother for awakening useless powers. At the time, her cold doesn't appear serious, so Shu just ignores her rambles to earn more negative emotion points from her and returns to his room to continue exploring his awakened system. Not long after, he finds the in-game store, spends a few bucks buying a celestial fruit, and eats it. Within seconds, his consciousness reappears in his celestial map, and Shu watches as his spiritual energy merges with the orbs floating there. After the merge, a sharp chest pain sends Shu's soul back to the physical body, and Shu, suspecting that he's just awakened the lowest-ranking superpower, super strength, tries lifting his bed with one hand to test it out. After pulling it off, he figures he needs more negative emotion points to level up faster, but to do this, he returns to the living room, sits near Xiaoyu, and becomes a Twitter keyboard warrior for a few minutes, trolling anything that types. While he's at it, Xiaoyu's cold gets worse, so she rage-baits him by calling him a brokey who can't afford school extracurriculars, but Shu hits her with the life lesson speech, which shuts her up, and continues pissing off random people online. The following morning, Shu sets up a makeshift kiosk on the sidewalk to sell cooked eggs and sauce to commuters, earning some cash before heading to school. Before long, his class president and hater, Lu, shows up with his lackeys and trash-talks Shu just to get a reaction out of him. Shu ignores the guy at first, but when he continues yapping, he convinces him to agree to buy all 47 eggs left. Now, Lu isn't one to be that generous, so to troll Shu even further, he pulls out his Golden Express credit card and tells Shu to scan it, knowing that he doesn't have a scanner. Thankfully, before Shu disgraces himself, the most classy baddie in their class, Co, pulls up with the greatest "I got you homie" save and settles the bill for the dingus. Upon meeting her gaze, Shu instantly senses some latent spiritual power inside her, almost as if she were hiding her superpowers. But just as he's about to thank her, she disappears. Hours later, when he gets to class, Shu learns about the 6 Awakener classification ranks from an internet video and quickly realizes that he's still at the lowest rank, rank F. As he continues trying to farm more negative emotion points from his classmates, another student suddenly shows up and tells them that one of their delinquent classmates, Chi, who just awakened, is trying to throw his homeroom teacher off the roof. Hearing this, Shu disappears to investigate the situation and follows 2 shady-looking dudes to the roof, where Chi is. When he gets there, Shu spots many students flocking around Chi and ransacks his brain cells till he comes up with a way to farm negative emotion points from them. While Chi continues yapping about him being above the law, given his age, Shu walks forward and tells him a bunch of hogwash laws that'll send people like him to the grave. Thankfully, she has the intelligence of a turkey sandwich, so he believes Shu's nonsense and puts the teacher down. However, as for the other students who can see right through Shu's con, they all stare at him, shocked to see that his jargon talk worked, and unintentionally earn him 1,000 more negative emotion points. After de-escalating the situation, Shu walks back to class and finds 2 government doctors standing there, ready to draw their blood to test for metahuman abilities. To avoid getting his blood drawn, Shu tries sneaking out, but a 3rd doctor blocks his path and holds him down till they draw his blood. After school, Shu returns home to find out that Xiaoyu tried to wash his clothes with cold water and worsened her fever. Feeling sorry for her, he gives her some of the stellar fruit that he bought from his Awakener system to eat, and almost instantly, Xiaoyu's fever disappears. Right after regaining her strength, Xiaoyu continues teasing him as usual, but Shu ignores her and asks her if she'd love to awaken if she has the chance. When Xiaoyu says yes, he promises to find a way to help her with that, and then scolds her for abandoning her homework to earn more negative emotion points. The following day, Shu's homeroom teacher shows up with Fei to make a special announcement in class. The moment Shu spots Fei with his teacher, he expresses his shock in silence, but still listens to what he has to say. After the niceties, his teacher talks about a special class, called a Dao Yuan class, that the government is hosting, with Fei as their teacher, to educate the new student awakeners about their superpowers. Following that, he calls out the names of his class's new awakeners, but the moment he and the entire class find out Shu also awakened, they all stare at him in utter shock. Shortly after, Fei leaves, and the teacher moves on to introduce a handsome transfer student awakener named Jiang to the class. After the niceties, Jiang takes his seat next to Shu, becoming his seat partner. But as the class continues, Shu notices the nervousness on the guy's face and trolls the guy to death to earn a few negative emotion points. By nightfall, Shu returns to school to attend his first Dao Yuan class with his fellow student awakeners, including Jiang. As the class begins, Fei shows up and explains that he'll be teaching the students about cultivation. However, just as he's about to start explaining the concept, he spots Shu sitting at the back and immediately asks him to define what a sodium-potassium alloy is. As someone whose brain still runs on Windows Vista, Shu answers so stupidly that even Beetlejuice would cringe, and the entire class erupts in laughter. To avoid any further distractions, Fei calls the students to order and explains that the alloy, also known as liquid metal, is what doctors use to test human blood for any awakening traits. Once mixed with human blood, the liquid metal alloy turns dark with a particular hue or shade. The higher the shade, the higher the rank of the awakener. Having said all that, Fei moves on to narrate how awakeners even came into existence. According to history, it all began some years ago, when scientists observed a large number of positrons in the environment. Unfortunately, before they could control the spread, multiple humans had already absorbed some of those positrons and developed unique cultivation techniques that gave them superpowers. That said, Fei ends the class, and Shu returns home, where he munches on some stellar fruit to suppress his spiritual power, so he can stay under the radar. However, after eating a few dozen stellar fruits, he runs out of them. So to figure out a replacement, he spins the Wheel of Fortune and wins a bowl of stinky tofu, which he shares with Xiaoyu. After eating the tofu, Xiaoyu asks Shu to buy her pancakes and fruit from his Wheel of Fortune. In the next few minutes, Shu spins the wheel almost 50 times, but unfortunately, all he could pull was about stinky tofu. On his final spin, Shu suddenly pulls another magical nursery poem. But just as he's about to read it, Xiaoyu's body absorbs the whole thing, and her entire soul is transported to her inner celestial map. Scared that she might have done something bad, Xiaoyu apologizes, but when Shu urges her to calm down, she continues exploring her celestial map until she awakens her superpowers. The following morning, Shu walks to his kiosk to sell off all the stinky tofu he bought the previous night, but on the way there, he runs into his previously ill neighbor, Mr. Li, swinging his sword in his front yard like a Gen Alpha toddler. Upon spotting him, Li offers to teach him swordsmanship, but Shu just ignores him and leaves. Soon after, he returns to his life and spends the next few days selling stinky tofu and eggs, all while earning negative emotion points and leveling up all at the same time. One night, Shu consumes yet another celestial fruit and returns to his inner celestial map. There, the first magical poem he recited at the beginning suddenly plays, and within the next few seconds, he fuses the spiritual power from the Chinese character on his palm with that of the Soul Nebula, which is a fancy name for the soul orb or center of his celestial map, and creates his first spirit weapon, the Corpse Dog Spirit Dagger. The following evening, during one of his Dao Yuan classes, Shu spots Fei using an item called a Spirit Stone to train another student awakener, and asks Jiang what it's used for. While Jiang explains that it's to help them train, Fei ends the demonstration, gives the others a few instructions on how to train with their stones when they get home, and ends the class abruptly. When Shu gets home, he tries the exercise his teacher told him to do with his corpse dog. However, when his celestial map goes violent, he suddenly realizes that Fei's teachings can't help him, so he stops the training and calls it a night. When he gets to school the following morning, Shu tells Jiang about his terrible training experience with the Spirit Stone the previous night and asks how his own training went. Unfortunately, as Jiang narrates all the things he learned, someone pisses him off, so he leaves Shu hanging and runs away to cry. Since he's less busy, Shu visits a half-empty classroom and finds Liu participating in arm wrestling matches. To humiliate him, Liu challenges Shu to a match, but Shu destroys both his arms and disgraces him. After the contest, Shu chills out in the cafeteria and teases Liu and his goons the entire time for being losers. When Jiang, his cafeteria seat partner, asks him why he's picking on Liu and his crew so much, he lies, telling him it's because Liu and his goons helped him awaken his weak powers. Fortunately for him, Jiang believes this and advises that he report his progress to Fei so he can get more spirit stones, but rather than doing that, Shu asks Jiang about Fei's background. Jiang tells him that Fei is from an organization called the Heavenly Network, which is also where most of them awakened from, and he starts suspecting something sinister is happening behind the scenes. Later that night, Shu feels a sudden surge in the negative energy around his house, so he stops whatever he's doing and peeks out of his window to observe the situation. Soon, he spots the leader of the Heavenly Network, Ting, and a few of his bodyguards making their way to Li's entrance, and wonders what their business is with the old man. At the entrance, Ting introduces himself and requests to be let into the house. After Li invites him in, the duo exchanges pleasantries. Li serves him some tea, and Ting instantly tells him about a war that's brewing in the nation. Given how strong Li is as an individual, Ting urges him to join the Heavenly Network to help stop the war. But since the law strictly prohibits high-ranking Awakeners from the Golden Foundation, like Li, from joining forces with the opposing side, the Heavenly Network, Li declines. At this point, Ting gets desperate, even bribing the old man with more ginseng tea. But when Li still refuses to join him, Ting gives up and leaves. Shortly after, Shu suspects that Li, his expired old neighbor, might actually be connected to the Heavenly Network, which houses some of the strongest cultivators and Awakeners ever known. So the next morning, he approaches the man and agrees to train under him if he can watch over Xiao Yu while he's at school. Without hesitation, Li agrees to his condition, and so Shu makes sure to drop Xiao Yu off before getting to school. At school, Shu watches a recording of a bank robbery caused by 3 level E Awakeners, but as he analyzes the footage, he receives more than a dozen negative emotion points added to his balance from Li, and fears Xiao Yu might be pissing off that old man. After school, Shu gets a weird gaze from the quiet baddie, Xiao, at the school gates, but he ignores her and rushes home, only to find Xiao Yu trolling the poor old man to his second heart attack. To his surprise, each time Li gets pissed, he gets negative emotion points added to his balance, which is weird, but then again, Shu figures it's probably because their celestial maps are similar. Now that Shu's back home, Li releases Xiao Yu to preserve his sanity and urges Shu to get ready for his first swordsmanship training. Shu does all the appropriate preparations, but when Li starts dissing the founder of Taoism, Shi Suijin, who also belongs to the Heavenly Network, Shu cuts him short and urges him to explain what he wants to teach him. To do this, Li picks up a sheet of paper, infuses it with his spiritual energy, creates a magical blade, and slices through a 1-2-inch thick wall like butter. After that, he says a few philosophical things about a sword. Then he gives Shu a rusty sword and tells him to practice his swings till he's able to cut through the air. However, the moment Shu starts practicing swings, Li instantly recognizes all the faults in his terrible form and stance and takes notes. Over the next few hours, Shu infuses his spiritual energy into the sword and gets a little better. But once it gets dark, he takes a break and has some tea with Li before calling it a night. After a brief discussion about hard work, Li asks Shu if he plans on using whatever sword skills he learns to help people, and Shu tells him that he probably wouldn't. Given how hard his early life was at the orphanage, Shu tells the old man that he's grown to the point where his only wish is to live well and take care of Xiao Yu, so the ambitious ones can go around saving people. Hearing this, Li realizes that he can't change Shu's conviction, so he agrees to disagree and ends their first training session together. The following morning, Shu drops Xiao Yu off with Li, but this time around, Li's wife, Lin, buys Xiao Yu a bag of chips and urges her to snack on them while she reads her textbooks. While she's at it, she arrives at Li's front yard to discuss with him, and after Xiao Yu pisses both of them off, Shu gets a notification that she's around his sister. This shocks him because he thinks she is one of the heads of the Heavenly Network, so to ensure he meets him, Shu leaves school that instant and runs as quickly as possible to Li's front yard. Getting there, Shu has Xiao Yu rush inside to get him something and then introduces himself to Shi. After the niceties, she tells Li that the old country ruins are showing signs of reappearing and then warns him to ensure his colleagues from the Foundation don't try to stop it. Following this passive-aggressive warning, she tries recruiting Li to the Heavenly Network, just like Ting did, but when Li still refuses to join, he leaves. Given everything he just witnessed, Shu asks Li about the Shi guy, but when the old man describes the kind of power he holds in the Heavenly Network, he panics. Seeing this, Li assures him that he'll be keeping his lessons private. Then he drops 2 vials of liquid metal and urges Shu and his sister to test their Awakener levels again. Later that night, Shu and his sister each put a drop of their blood inside each vial. But when the reaction begins, Shu's solution gives an odd glow, just like his celestial map, while Xiao Yu's solution takes on a level A Awakener shade. Confused, Shu checks the color grading to see which level he belongs to. However, when he doesn't find it there, he concludes that his power must be too weak to make a reaction, and decides to just dispose of the solution in the yard outside. While he's at it, Li shows up and asks what level he's at. Shu lies, telling him he's still F rank, and Li returns to his house disappointed. Later on, Shu breaks through his celestial map's Soul Nebula a second time and finally unlocks a glowing blue aura shroud that covers his entire body to provide absolute protection against injuries. Around that same time, Xiao Yu also breaks through her Soul Nebula's first layer, awakening her necromancer abilities, and showcases her new powers to her brother when she wakes up by bringing a dead ant back to life as her zombie servant. Intrigued, Shu asks if she can summon more than one dead animal at a time, and Xiaoyu rushes outside to try summoning a few more dead ants, only to realize that she can still only summon one. Knowing this, Shu suggests she tries summoning another animal, and Xiaoyu effortlessly summons a recently deceased bird. Afterwards, he then asks her how long she can control her zombie animals, but Xiaoyu tells him there's no time limit since they consume very little energy from the black hole. That said, Xiaoyu then suggests they try summoning dead humans at the cemetery, but after seeing how terrifying ghosts from the Conjuring can be, Shu tells her to try something else. Eventually, Shu takes his little sister to a pig sty and forces her to learn a pig's anatomy so she can properly summon one next time. Although Xiaoyu is very reluctant to learn to summon such a weird animal, she still manages to summon a dead pig when they get back home. To test the pig's similarity to a real one, Shu slices it open to see black blood draining, and then stabs it to its second death with his corpse dog, earning a bunch of negative emotion points from Xiaoyu's wrath and anger. Later that night, over dinner, Shu finds out from the news that the suspects from the bank robbery earlier are fleeing towards the city and have murdered 3 people in their rampage. Not long after they hear the news, he and Xiaoyu start feeling the negative aura around their vicinity. So to track the source, Shu activates his blue aura shroud and jumps over a few roofs with Xiaoyu till they find the 3 bank robbers on a bridge fighting Fei and a few of his lackeys. While they chill to observe the fight, the level D ringleader of the robbers, Hao, has one of his guys fires several fireballs at Fei, but when Fei deflects them, he pounces on him and wrestles him like the Joker. At first, Fei defends the guy's punches, but since Hao's a power-type awakener, he easily gets overwhelmed and retreats to call for backup. Seeing this, another robber turns the road into a slippery slip-and-slide pavement to stop him. But before they get to him, Fei's colleagues show up to back him up. With both sides now on even ground, Fei ignites a hidden substance he'd placed in the 2 smaller robbers' coats earlier and bombs both of them. Afterward, 2 of Fei's lackeys rush into the smoke to finish off Hao and the others, not knowing that it's a big trap. The moment they enter the smoke, a second explosion happens, slaughtering them both, and Hao and his goons retreat immediately after. As the police chase after them, Shu sends Xiaoyu back home to keep her safe, and then follows the cars till they get to the robbers' hideout, which happens to be an abandoned building. While the police infiltrate the building, the other 2 robbers suggest to their ringleader that they just surrender to stay alive. But since they've already murdered 2 of Fei's men, he tells them they can't risk it. With time running out, Hao tells them about a safe zone in the mountains, and then promises to get them out of there safely at the right time. After waiting for a few more minutes, Hao knocks both his goons out, then he breaks out of their hiding spot, alerting the police team, and makes a run for the alleyways. To stop him, Fei and his colleagues chase after the guy and stab him in the stomach with an Awakener blood sword technique. However, just as they're about to finish him off, they spot Shu covered in his blue aura shroud, chilling on a rebar above them, and attack him. As round 2 of their battle begins, Shu plays around with Fei's underlings like they were trained by toddlers, while Fei, who couldn't recognize Shu because of his shroud, continues fighting the injured ringleader. Despite his bloody injury, Hao puts up a good fight against Fei's underlings while simultaneously making sure he doesn't bleed out too much. Nearing the end of the entire ordeal, Shu takes his fight to a thin steel rebar and easily knocks down both women fighting him, but just as Hao's about to murder one of the men fighting him, Fei joins the battle and bombs the entire place. Following the explosion, Hao throws a gas tank in his direction, and Fei, thinking it was a weapon, accidentally ignites it. Within seconds, a second explosion happens, but this time around, it knocks Fei and the rest of his colleagues out, leaving just Shu. Afterward, the arrogant buffoon of a robber decides to fight Shu instead of running away, but the moment he extends his fist to punch him, Shu powers up using the power of his corpse dog and clashes fists with him. The resulting shockwave sends a powerful ripple of force into Hao's body, breaking every single bone inside, and murdering him in the process. But to avoid exposing himself even further, Shu rushes back home. There, he suggests that he and Xiaoyu explore the alleyways around the abandoned buildings for any new souls she can collect, and Xiaoyu reluctantly agrees to this, so they get a move on. Getting there, Shu has Xiaoyu scan the entire area with her sparrow for any signs of the robbers. Once she reports that there's none, he puts on his blue aura shroud, walks to the exact spot where the robbers died, observes it, and texts Xiaoyu to show up after confirming that it's safe. After she arrives, Xiaoyu scans the spot, senses the 3 robbers' souls lingering around, and informs Shu. Hearing this, Shu tells her to absorb the soul of Hao, and when she does, he tells her to summon it. Unfortunately, Xiaoyu can't do that because she's exhausted from all that running, But since all she needs is one day to regain her strength, Shu decides to take her to a cheap night kiosk around the corner to eat and celebrate their big win. Getting there, Xiaoyu stuffs her face like a pig. But while she's at it, Shu tells her to always keep her new necromancer powers a secret and make sure she doesn't randomly let out the soul she captured earlier. When Xiaoyu still ignores him, Shu figures she might not be happy living with him. So he tells her that he'll be sending her back to the orphanage soon, and Xiaoyu instantly bursts into tears. As she begs Shu to let her stay with him, Shu recalls all the painful memories he's shared with her in the past, and not only chooses to keep her as his family, but also promises that he'll soon buy them a home of their own. Happy to hear this, Xiaoyu holds Shu's hand, and as they finish their food, the duo promises to always be there for each other. Later that night, Ting, Shi, and some other members of the Heavenly Network host a meeting to discuss the aftermath of the battle with the Level D robber. Along the line, she talks about the uncanny guy in the blue shroud, who murdered the robber Faye failed to catch, and then tells Ting that the dude has remained under the radar until now. At first, they figure the person was Li, but after investigating the mysterious guy's movements from a video recording of the battle, they realize that he just might be stronger than Li himself. That said, she encourages everyone at the table to think back and see if there's been any legacies they left behind. But given how scarce it is to find someone that's skilled, Ting tells him that their guy isn't from the Heavenly Network at all. That being said, one of the high-ranking executives in the meeting, Yishi, gets up, reminds Ting that the next ruin will open in Luo City, which is where Shu lives, and requests permission to go and investigate this mysterious guy. Upon warning the guy to operate in silence, Ting permits him and ends the meeting. Afterward, Yishi asks Shi about the power of this mysterious guy, and Shi tells him that he's certain that the guy, despite being younger, will beat the life out of him. The following morning, Shu returns to his stinky tofu selling business. After selling out his first batch in minutes, he gets a little sad because ever since people got used to the smell, he's not been earning enough negative emotion points from them. To solve this, he sells out the next 50 bowls of tofu, and then begins trolling the next few customers, which surprisingly earns him more negative emotion points than usual. Later that night, while Lexi sneaks out of his own house to go on a mission, Xiaoyu finally manages to summon Hao's spirit as her zombie servant. Excited, she rushes to Shu's room to show off her improvement, but the moment he opens the door, she jump scares him. Upon seeing the zombie, Shu locks down his entire room and studies it in silence for a few more seconds. Then, he asks Xiaoyu if she can control the ghost, and she assures him that she can do that easily. Following the small talk, Xiaoyu then reveals that she also developed the ability to see into Hao's last few memories before he died, and, judging by what she's seen so far, she tells Shu that she knows they buried the money on the mountaintop in the southern suburbs. That said, she then suggests that they both dig up the money for their personal use, but Mr. Goody Two-Shoes tells her they can't do that because then they'll attract too much attention to themselves. Saddened by this, Xiaoyu reminds him that they can buy their dream house with that money, but when Shu promises to buy the house the right way, she stops crying and goes to sleep. Shortly after, Shu returns to his bed, checks out a real estate ad flyer, and then surfs the online black market for things he can sell for some quick cash. The following day in school, Shu chills out with Jiang and asks if he's heard any news about what the robbers from the previous day left behind. In response, Jiang tells him some metaphysical jargon about the mass awakening, calling it the revival of the spirit, and somehow linking it to antimatter that affects both plants and animals. Amid all the yapping, Shu asks Jiang if any intellectual valuables sell easily on the black market, and Jiang tells him that the spirit stones that they're being given in the Dao Yuan class are worth quite a sum. About an hour later, Shu's school's principal gathers all the students at the sports field to witness the inauguration ceremony of the new director of the school, the fat, obnoxious Yishi. After making the students wait in the searing heat for 30 minutes, Yishi finally arrives with Faye in a police car, looking like dog poop, but when he spots the principal at the gate, he explains that he went gold digging for the previous day's robbers' money with his buddies, and was caught by the police. Now that he's out of trouble, Yishi enters the school, but as he walks towards the podium, Shu instantly recognizes him as a high-ranking Level B Awakener from the Heavenly Network. At that exact moment, Yishi also senses someone appraising his skills, so he stares into the crowd of students, hoping to find that person, but Shu hides his face. After searching for a few more seconds and finding nobody, Yishi mounts the podium, gives a half-assed introductory speech, and dismisses everyone. Later that evening, Yishi hosts the special Dao Yuan class with Fai and, after introducing himself, shows the students a video recording of the robbers and their battles with Fai and his men. Following this, he talks about the mysterious C-ranker who defeated Hao, tells them about the guy's swordsmanship skills, and urges the students to notify him or Fei if they notice anybody acting suspicious. With that being said, Yixi and Fei then proceed to explain the new spirit stone distribution system, as well as the school trip they'll be taking to the Beiming Mountain soon to explore the ruin that just appeared in the country, and end the class immediately after. Moments later, as the other students walk home, Shu pulls Jiang to a discreet corner around the school, presents 2 spirit stones to him, and then asks him how much he can sell 1 spirit stone on the black market. At first, Jiang asks him where he found 2 random spirit stones, seeing as their supply is controlled strictly by the heavenly network. But when Shu urges him not to worry about that, he tells him each stone can cost as much as 100,000 yuan. Shocked, Shu begs Jiang to put word out that he has 2 for sale for 120,000 yuan. But the moment Jiang calls one of his contacts, he finds a buyer willing to pay 240,000 yuan for 2, and then asks Shu for his account number. Surprised by how quick that was, Shu gives Jiang both spirit stones and urges him to handle the sale first, so he can send his account number later. With that settled, Shu says his goodbyes to Jiang and begins his walk back home. Around that same time, little Xiaoyu continues frustrating Li, but while he crashes out at her for being a literal walking headache, Lin shows up with a bowl of steamed red potatoes and serves them to her. As she munches on the potatoes, Li catches Yixi sneaking around his front yard, so he calls him out and demands to know what he's doing there. Initially, Yixi lies that he was just trying to deliver medicine, but when Li calls him out on his nonsense, the fat guy folds under zero pressure and tells him about the mysterious level C awakener he's currently investigating. Granted, Li doesn't think much about the mysterious dude since he's the heavenly network's problem, but when Yixi mentions that he knows how to use a sword, Li suddenly realizes what's at play here. With a frown on his face, he tells Yixi that the C ranker isn't from his foundation, and Yixi, after agreeing with him, leaves. Later that night, while Lai thinks about this mysterious swordsman C ranker, Shu returns home, gives Xiaoyu the new phone he just bought for her, and tells her that he's going to buy the house they're currently renting the next day from the landlord. Within the first few seconds of hearing this news, Xiaoyu freezes, almost as if she were dreaming, but when it all sinks in, she hugs Shu and bawls her eyes out. After that, Shu puts her to bed and spends the rest of the night exploring his celestial map, but as he ranks up his XP to become a level C awakener, Xiaoyu, on the other hand, gets even more darkness infused into her system. The following morning, Yixi randomly approaches Shu's stinky tofu kiosk and asks to buy some of his samples. However, when he recognizes Shu to be a student from his Dao Yuan class, he starts demanding that Shu give him free tofu for protection. At that point, Shu's stall neighbor confronts the idiot and accuses him of extorting an orphan. But to avoid looking like the bad guy, Yixi pays Shu in full and leaves with his tofu bowl. Later that evening, Shu buys their home as promised, but after his evening Dao Yuan class, Yixi calls and reminds him about the school trip to the ruin. With time running out, Shu texts Xiaoyu that he'll be away for a few days and races to the bus stop. On their way to the ruin, Shu's other colleagues get a little scared that they're being led to their deaths, but when Shu asks Jiang what he thinks, Jiang assures him that they're just there to protect the territory, while the higher-ups explore the ruin for themselves. Realizing that he's right, Shu then asks Jiang to explain what these so-called ruins are all about, and Jiang begins by telling him that they're weird caves left on Earth by an alien civilization after the atmospheric change that birthed awakeners. Anywhere one appears, it's said that masters and cultivators from far and wide fight for the infamous Formation I, which is said to be the most valuable item in a ruin, and would sometimes slaughter each other to get it. Since this is the only ruin that's appeared in their entire country, Shu crashes out at the seniors for leaving them in the dark, but Jiang tells him that they might be doing so to keep them calm. Moments later, they all arrive at the Beiming Mount camp and line up for a quick briefing from Fei before settling in. After telling them the reason they're there, which is for them to learn on the job, he warns them never to speak of the operation or training to anyone else, or they'll be court-martialed. Following his speech, Fei dismisses them, and Shu and his colleagues get a bunch of food from the camp cook. Moments later, as they all enjoy their dinner in a separate camp, a big-backed dimwit with main character syndrome shows up and rudely throws his weight around. He walks on other people's food and demands an extra bench to fit his 300-pound self on, but the moment he gets a bench, Shu repairs his malfunctioning brain cells with a nasty backhand slap. This causes a ruckus amongst the students, but when Fei shows up and realizes Shu's the one who did this, he carries the fat idiot away and allows dinner to continue in peace. Around midnight, Shu sneaks out of his meditation practice camp to get some fresh air, but upon getting there, he finds Yixi staring intently at the Beiming Mountain, ignores him, and tests the air to see if it's possible to farm negative emotion points without practicing meditation like the other students. The moment he finds out that he can, Shu walks back into the camp and does his very best to frustrate Lu, his arch-nemesis, so he can farm as many negative emotion points as he can. At first, Lu tries to ignore him to focus on his practice, but when Shu keeps up his annoying yap, he just gives up. The following morning, Shu buys 9 celestial fruits with the negative emotion points he earned from Lu and takes out his phone to contact Xiaoyu, only to realize that there's no service. Naturally, Shu would freak out, but since he knows Xiaoyu is a little more mature, he forgets about the call and focuses on getting breakfast. Moments later, while they eat breakfast, Jiang, who saw Shu disturbing Lu the previous night, asks him why he's always picking on him. And Shu says it's all because the arrogant fool lost to him twice in an arm wrestling contest. After breakfast, Shu spends the entire day frustrating the life out of Lu, so by nightfall, Lu runs to a cliff and settles there, hoping to meditate in peace. Sadly, the moment he returns to practicing meditation, Shu pops out of nowhere and continues pestering him till he gives up. The next morning, Shu transports his soul into his celestial map and uses those 9 celestial fruits he bought earlier to upgrade his blue aura shroud to a higher level. After that, he returns to reality and walks back to camp to line up for breakfast. But before long, Lu shows up and starts trash-talking Shu's rank again. Rather than reacting to the fool's banter, Shu suggests they settle their problems in another arm wrestling match. At this point, a crowd was already forming around them, so to avoid the eternal disgrace that comes with losing, Lu tells Shu to fight him instead. However, before they even get to fight, Fei shows up and authorizes the arm wrestling contest. Within a few minutes, he arranges a tent for the contest and pits both against each other. Unfortunately, the moment the contest begins, Shu beats Lu easily, and at that point, Lu starts doubting his reality. Impressed by his toughness, Fei decides to compete with Shu, but Shu still beats him. About an hour after the arm wrestling contest, Shu and Jiang notice some weird mist approaching their encampment from the mountains. At first, they think it's just normal, but when the mist keeps getting dangerously close to the camp, they realize that it's the infamous portal that sucks and traps everyone inside the ruin till it's cleared. With time running out, Fei and the other officials release an emergency broadcast over the speakers, ordering everyone to get off the mountain as fast as they can, but unfortunately, it's already too late because the mist eventually engulfs and sends everyone, including Shu and Jiang, into the ruin. After a gut-wrenching landing, Shu wakes up to find himself in a desert inside the ruin. However, as he explores the place, a zombie skeleton attacks him with a battle axe. Shu does his best to dodge the skeleton's swings, yet the moment he spots an opening, he grabs the axe from the skeleton and crushes its head, murdering it. As he continues exploring the ruin, a bunch of other skeletons pop out from the ground to avenge their dear friend. But before long, a bunch of other students approach him and advise him to get as far away from the skeletons as possible. Just then, one of the students gets attacked and murdered by a skeleton. So to protect the others, Shu faces the entire skeleton army himself and murders them all while the others watch. After taking down all the skeletons, Shu returns to the other students, gives them instructions on how to avoid skeletons soon, drops the axe, and leaves to continue exploring the ruin. Before long, he encounters another group of skeleton zombies, wipes them out, and hurries off to find a place to camp before night falls. Given how strong these zombies can be at night, Shu knows he has to find a place with an expansive view, like a mountaintop, so he races towards the nearest mountain. On the way there, he spots a red flare flying across the sky and knocks it down to observe it. However, when he reaches the spot where the flare landed, he finds a Dao Yuan blonde student from another city named Chang standing nearby, holding a flare gun and staring at him with a puzzled look. As Shu wonders who this strange guy could be, it's revealed that Chang is actually a spy from another city sent to the ruins to steal the Formation Eye, and that shooting the flare gun was his way of rendezvousing with his fellow spies in the area. Now that his plan has failed, Chang introduces himself calmly to Shu and asks him to do the same. At first, Shu introduces himself as Lu Li, which Chang believes, but the moment he mentions that he's from the same city as Chang, they both become confused, and the tension increases. To avoid blowing his cover, Chang quickly changes the subject and asks to check the rusty sword Shu's holding. But when Shu refuses to give him the sword, he decides to leave to join the rest of his colleagues, and Shu follows to continue trolling him for more negative emotion points. Not long after, the duo runs into a patch of land filled with skeleton zombies, and soon becomes surrounded. As the skeletons seep out of the ground, Chang makes a run for it, and Shu follows him closely. Before long, he asks Shu to give him his rusty sword so he can slaughter the zombies chasing after them with it. But Shu keeps the sword just to troll him and farm more negative emotion points. Eventually, Shu abandons Chang in the midst of the zombies, but despite that, Chang destroys them easily and keeps running till he catches up to Shu. Upon getting to Shu, Chang demands to know why Shu left him with the zombies to die, and Shu deceives the brainless oaf by acting dumb till he believes him. After settling the misunderstanding, the duo finds a suitable place to camp for the night. But before they sleep, Shu trolls Chang by pretending to meditate for a few seconds, and then jump scares him once he tries to pull a fast one on him, earning a few more negative emotion points. The following morning, Shu gets a little hungry, so he leaves Chang to get to a corner and orders a bowl of stinky tofu from his system's interface. After taking a few bites, he returns to their campsite, and Chang, shocked to see him carrying a steaming bowl of stinky tofu, demands to know how he got it. Instead of responding to his question, Shu ignores and continues rage-baiting the poor dude with a boatload of useless information until Chang snaps. Refusing to endure any more nonsense from him, Chang takes a fatal swing at Shu, but Shu immediately blocks it, and they get into a serious fight. Over the next few minutes, Chang desperately fights Shu, searching for openings in his defense to land a fatal hit, while Shu dodges all his attacks and lands a few injuries on Chang. At one point in their fight, they pause. However, the moment Chang lunges at him to continue fighting, Shu continues blocking and landing more hits. Just then, Chang gains the upper hand and yanks Shu's rusty sword out from his hand, but just as he's about to finish him off, Shu gets behind him, summons his corpse dog, and stabs Chang right in the chest. Within seconds, Chang dies and Shu, upon accepting the fact that he's now a murderer, leaves after picking up his rusty sword to continue exploring. 2 days later, he finds a huge apple tree housing a large number of chipmunks and plucks a bunch of apples to munch on when he gets to a safe spot. Once the chipmunks spot him stealing their precious apple fruits, they hurl stones at him, and Shu runs away with the few fruits he managed to pluck. Some hours later, he takes a break from all that running and tries to figure out where he's at. Given how large the ruin actually is, Shu figures that the formation eye should be at the center. However, to get there, he has to retrace all his steps from the beginning. That said, Shu gets up to begin his journey back to the point where he spawned, but just then, a pack of demon wolves attacks and chases him all the way back to the apple tree from earlier. Scared for his life, Shu runs as quickly as he can to lose the wolves, but at one point, one of the wolves catches up to him and bites his right arm. To stop the bleeding, Shu quickly buys a celestial fruit and eats it. However, when the bleeding doesn't stop, he realizes that he's absolutely cooked and keeps running all night until he evolves, becoming much faster and stronger. With this new upgrade, Shu speeds up, loses the entire pack in a jiffy, and keeps running, only to stop when he finds himself in a ravine with the students he protected at the beginning. The moment they recognize him, the spineless cowards ask if he returned with reinforcements, and Shu tells them that he didn't. Disappointed, they glare at him, wondering how he managed to survive the harsh desert for 2 days, all alone, but Shu just ignores them and stretches a little to rest. Not long after, he becomes curious and asks the students why there are only a few of them remaining. But the only girl in the group says it's because another group of zombies ate more of them right after he left. Hearing this, he then asks about their feeding, and they all tell him they've not eaten in 3 days. Rather than giving them some of the apples he plucked, he eats them right in front of them, all just to troll them, and gives them directions on how to get more for themselves. At one point, the girl tries to get a bite from him, but when Shu refuses to let her eat, the other students get angry and decide to steal his food together. Before long, a hopeless wuss walks towards Shu with a battle axe and demands that he hand over his food. However, to avoid hurting them, Shu just bores them to death with stupid information, which earns him a few thousand negative emotion points and leaves right after yanking a battle axe off them. A few hours later, as Shu explores the ruin, a cavalry zombie spots him walking and attacks him with its spear. Sensing the danger, Shu holds the spear down for a few seconds, earning himself some negative emotion points, and once the cavalry zombie gets tired, he yanks it off its hand. Soon after, 8 more cavalry zombies, including their general, approach him, but Shu knows the terrain won't let him fight them properly yet, so he climbs up a nearby hill to get away. Seeing this, the zombie general has his archers fire several dozen arrows at him, but due to Shu's insane main character plot armor, not a single one touches him. Upon trying and failing to catch Shu a few more times, the zombie general gives up and leaves with his men. With them gone, Shu recovers the first cavalry zombie's spear, infuses it with spiritual energy, and continues searching for the formation eye. 1 hour later, about 7 level C Awakeners from Faye's team spot the same cavalry zombie general and his army marching towards them and get a little scared. Seeing his bullets don't work against them, one of the Awakeners, Bai, urges their scout to find the general before they attack, so they can slaughter it and break the whole group down. Upon observing the zombies for a few seconds, the scout singles out the only one that looks different, which is the same zombie whose spear Shu stole earlier, and calls it the leader. Seeing this, another officer suggests that they might be making a mistake, especially judging by how easily exposed this so-called leader is, but since they can't back down now, Bai ignores him and instructs their sniper to find a better vantage point to take a shot. Once the sniper is properly positioned, he takes the shot and puts a bullet in the zombie's head. The moment the zombie goes down, the entire rejoice, thinking they've won, but just seconds later, the cavalry general walks forward and has his archers fire arrows at them. Scared for their lives, they all retreat to the edge of a ravine and chill out to discuss their next move. Before long, someone spots Shu hanging on the other side of the ravine's cliff, quietly waiting for the nearby cavalry zombies to fall into his trap, and informs the others. When they spot him, Bai, thinking he's just an ordinary Yuan student who's trapped and in danger, immediately barks out orders to his other men to help him out. However, before they lift a finger to help, Shu steals another one of the zombies' spears, climbs back up to the opposite side of the ravine, and leaves. Shocked by his athleticism, Bai and his colleagues rack their last brain cells to try and figure out who this guy really is. But just as they're about to give up, one of the Yuan students traveling with them tells them that the guy is the idiot from their class, Lu Shu. Hours later, the zombie general and his army surround Shu, but the moment they attack him, Shu infuses all the weapons with his spiritual energy and easily takes down all the small fries. Immediately after, the zombie general and two others attack him from opposite directions. However, after dodging the general's attacks, Shu takes out one of the small fries with his spear and faces the general in a battle of mortal combat. During the first half of the final battle, the second small fry, an archer, interrupts the battle, but Shu smashes its head on the ground, destroying it, and eventually defeats the zombie general. Moments later, the Bai, his colleagues, and the rest of the Yuan students search the ruin for Shu and soon start to wonder if the guy's already made it to the center of the ruin. Since they can't be so sure, they continue tracking him till they reach the battle site where Shu defeated the zombie general and his army, and analyze the aftermath, only to realize that he's much stronger than they thought. While they're at it, one of their scouts rushes in to report another 9 zombie horsemen sighting around the entrance of the core of the ruin, which are now chasing someone, and almost instantly, Bai cooks up an effective battle strategy he and his colleagues will use to defeat the horsemen. Soon after harvesting all the spears of the zombies he just murdered, Shu climbs up to a ledge on a mountain and checks out all the negative emotion points he's acquired from pissing off the zombies and the wolves in such a short time. After that, he buys a celestial fruit with some of the cash, eats it, and replenishes all the spiritual energy he spent fighting the zombie general earlier. Around that same time, Bai and his colleagues climb up a hill and observe the second cavalry zombie wave approaching their location. However, just as they're about to attack the zombies, mysterious purple aura spears fall from the sky and destroy about 3 of them. By the time Shu appears, Bai, his colleagues, and even the other students all rush to help him. But to their absolute surprise, Shu ends up taking down the entire army, including the zombie general, all without their help. Following his victory, Shu claims ownership of all the spoils of the battle and prohibits Bai and his people from even getting near them. To avoid any trouble, Bai tells him he's not interested in stealing his stuff, and then moves on to ask Shu why he's gathering so many weapons when he clearly can't use everything. Instead of answering the question, Shu just ignores Bai and sets up a temporary stall to sell all the spears, armor, and swords that he's collected so far. After that, he pitches his products to the desperate students and officers, only to realize that most of them are brokies with no cash and brains. To solve this issue, Shu decides to exchange the weapons for valuable jewelry and items instead, and within seconds of coming up with this idea, he sells a measly zombie sword and gets a 12,000 yuan mechanical watch in return. Upon noticing how seamless the entire exchange is, other officers rush toward him and offer their gold necklaces, watches, bracelets, and even belts, all just to get their hands on faulty weapons that aren't that sturdy. All the while, Shu gives them what they want without a care in the world and even extorts some extra cash and negative emotion points from his colleagues, becoming an Elon Musk wannabe from Temu. Soon after, the group continues trekking through a narrow ravine for several hours to get to the center of the ruin. As they approach the center, the temperature drops drastically, but despite this, they all push forward. Before long, Shu and Bai get into a discussion about the sacrifices some of the Heavenly Network members made to ensure the students are unharmed. While Shu thinks it's just a waste of time to protect these pathetic attention seekers, Bai tells him that they're actually worth protecting. Hours later, when it gets dark, Shu and the rest of his party pause their journey and camp at a certain spot inside the ravine to rest up. Along the line, Shu notices Bai and his colleagues sharing the last supplies they have just to stay alive. So he takes pity on them and shares some of the special apple fruits he caught earlier to replenish their energy. Upon cutting up and eating the apple fruit slices, Bai and his team feel a sudden surge of energy entering their system and thank Shu for saving them. Seeing this, the Dao Yuan students approach Shu and beg him for their share of the special apple fruit. At first, Shu refuses to give freebies, but when a guy surrenders his expensive watch in exchange, Shu happily shares. About an hour later, the temperature drops even further and, soon enough, a group of floating ghouls attacks their campsite. While Bai and the others form a defensive line, Shu recognizes these ghouls to be quite similar to Xiaoyu's zombies and ransacks his brain to figure out a way to fight them. Just then, his corpse dog gets excited and pushes against his chest, so it will murder them, but since Shu can't risk getting exposed, he contains the dagger in his body and accidentally scares the ghouls off with his immense power. With the ghouls gone, the whole crowd continues trekking the ravine till they get to the center of the ruin and reunite with other Heavenly Network members. While exploring the place, Shu notices a massive 8-meter-wide hole in the ground as he overhears a small fry from the Heavenly Network narrate just how Cao, the quiet baddie from earlier, saved his stupid self from a bunch of zombies back when he was trapped and crying like a new-gen iPad boy. Although impressed by Cao's abilities, Shu doesn't think much about the story and instead focuses on observing the massive hole in the ground as well as selling his weapons. As expected, Shu sells multiple weapons to gain more bling items, but while he's at it, Fate takes him to the leader of their expedition team, Zhang, and introduces him as a prodigy from his class. Being a chill man, Zhang welcomes Shu with open arms and informs both him and Cao, being the only students who stood out from the rest, to follow his very lead. That said, Zhang gathers a few of the higher-ups at the edge of the massive hole, and then he sends his special spiritual magic knife, the heart-blood-nourishing sword, to measure the depth of the hole. Some seconds later, he recalls the knife, informs his people that the hole is 100 meters deep, and that there's another big hole in it. Also, given how uncertain the power level of the ruin actually can be, Zhang advises they rest for the night and start exploring the following day, and the others agree. Later that night, while Shu fiddles with his negative emotion income notifications, he notices 9 odd names amongst the people feeding him negative emotion points, and, upon further investigation, he realizes that these guys are spies from another city. Unfortunately, as he studies the crowd to observe the spies, Yishi shows up holding an entire special apple tree, complete with dozens of fruit, and shakes off all the fruit and a chipmunk hiding inside it. Seeing this, Shu rushes over to discuss with Yishi, but not long after, Jiang shows up, and Shu discusses with him instead. After the small talk, he tells Jiang about his new get-rich-quick scam business of selling weapons, and gives him one of his spears as a token of goodwill. As Jiang checks the spear out, an ugly-looking dude approaches him confidently and promises to give him 50,000 yuan outside the ruin if he can give him one of those weapons. Thankfully, Shu wasn't born yesterday, so he sees through this obvious lie and rejects the guy's offer right on the spot. At this, the ugly dude starts saying all sorts of stupid things to prove that he isn't lying. But while he's at it, Shu suddenly gets a notification labeling the dude as one of the spies on the team. Rather than reacting to this, he keeps his cool and continues yapping till the guy walks away. By midnight, Shu's seen checking out the level of hate Xiaoyu has developed for him over the past few days, when suddenly, he notices 8 spies wake up at the same time and jump down into the massive hole to explore it before the others. Shu lets about 7 of them get down there, but keeps the last one behind and trolls him to either do a plunder split of 70-30, or he'll report them. To avoid trouble, the last guy, who happened to be the ugly dude from before, agrees to do the split, but when Shu still refuses to let him follow his colleagues down the hole, he attacks him. Sensing the danger, Shu dodges the attack easily, but just before the ugly dude attacks a second time, he screams his guts out to wake everyone up, and then exposes the foolish dude as a spy looking to steal the formation eye for himself. Within seconds of hearing this, Yishi destroys the perpetrator in a single strike, and then instructs Zhang to gather every strong personnel available so they can begin exploring the hole that night. Zhang gets a little suspicious that Yishi might have an ulterior motive, but since Yishi's still his boss, he ultimately gathers all the Awakeners on their team ranked level D or higher and briefs them on the perilous mission ahead. After that, Yishi approaches Shu at a corner and offers to help carry his shiny jewelry for him. However, when Shu refuses to let him hold any of his jewelry, he proposes a deal that Shu won't be able to refuse. He promises to grant Shu access to all the future ruins that appear in their country, using his power and status if Shu can share the spoils of all his sales with him, 90-10 in his favor. Hearing this, Shu knows Ishi's just trying to screw him over, So rather than caving into the man's sly behavior, he manipulates him into splitting their spoils 50-50, and Ishii agrees. With that settled, Shu stores all his jewelry in his jacket, ties it around his neck like an arm sling, and joins the other fighters as they prepare to descend the hole. After enduring Ishii's hour-long, painfully embarrassing speech, Zhang has one of his fighters create an artificial stairwell to lead them safely to the bottom of the hole. Once the stairwell is created, Ishii's small army then forms a single file line and carefully descends. On the way down, the entire space around the hole's walls glows green, and although Shu's pretty surprised to see this, he continues moving in silence. Seconds later, a loud energy outburst emanates from the bottom and disrupts everyone's flow, but once it stops, Shu and the others continue climbing down till they get to the hole's bottom. Getting there, they find the dead bodies of 6 of the 7 spies sitting upright in a circle, with one of them in the middle, and Ishii investigates them to see if there's a survivor. However, the moment he realizes that they're all dead, he lets them be and pushes forward with his army, without even realizing that something sinister is cooking behind the scenes. Upon trekking for a few more minutes, they all enter an odd space decorated with glowing green emerald crystals and a beautiful castle, and immediately get locked out once they're all inside. Shortly after, they are surrounded by an army of ghouls that attack them. At first, Ishii takes on a few of them to test their strength, but immediately he realizes that they're all just harmless disturbances. He urges the rest of his army to have fun destroying them. As the battle rages on, Shu tries attacking some ghouls, but for some weird reason, the ghouls run away as soon as they see the purple glow from his corpse dog on his chest. Bored out of his mind, Shu eventually takes the fight to them and takes down a large number of them. Before long, the soul of the spy sitting in the midst of the circle, Zhao, suddenly appears behind one officer and murders him. When Shu sees this, he finally understands why he felt uneasy back when they came across them earlier. But while he thinks of his next move, Ishii lets go of all his limiters and dispels the soul with his tiger aura. Following this, they identify the ghost to be a shadow of Zhao's former self, probably released due to the high positron levels in the atmosphere, but Shu, on the other hand, realizes that the after-death technique mentioned is quite similar to Xiao Yu's ability. Just then, he gets a sudden warning from his dagger to check his left side, and once he does, he finds Zhao's ghost trying to sneak up on him. Mind you, the ghost is invisible at the moment, so when he accurately guesses the location and smacks it, Ishii orders him to explain how he knew the ghost would be there. At this point, Shu knows he needs to cook up a good enough lie to deceive everyone, or else Ishii and the others will know that he's suppressing 95% of his power. So, to prove that he just luck-guessed the position of the ghost the other time, Shu tells Ishii to shoot plasma balls at random walls in the room, and once Ishii does, he ultimately realizes he was just tripping. Soon after, a large zombie army consisting of numerous foot soldiers and cavalry zombies barges into the room and traps Ishii and his men. After some trash talk, Ishii notices the special spear in the zombie general's hand, and suspecting that it might be the Ruins Formation Eye, he attacks the general with all his might till he destroys his horse. Enraged, the zombie general declares war on Ishii and his army. But despite being underpowered, Ishii still mobilizes his men to fight to their heart's content. As the battle begins, Shu utilizes his spear to take down multiple enemies at once, but the moment he nearly gets blindsided by one of the archers, Cao saves his pathetic life and continues clapping the zombies. A few minutes later, the zombies start avoiding Shu because of his corpse dog's aura, so rather than wasting his time fighting them, he sneaks into the castle behind them to explore and find something valuable. Not long after, he enters a random room in the castle and checks out his interface for the fun of it, only to realize that Xiao Yu now hates his guts. Just then, Zhao's spirit tries to sneak attack him from the building's ceiling, but since Shu can already sense it, he takes a very sus pose and blasts the ghost to smithereens with a pink lightning shot from his junk. Around that same time, Yixi and the zombie general go at each other's throats. While the zombie general goes full-on offensive, Yixi dodges and jumps around till he finally manages to grab the general's spear. Seeing this, the general amps up his power and spins Yixi around to shake him off his spear, but Yixi refuses to let go. As their battle rages on, Shu approaches a hall filled with red-eyed demon statues with a chipmunk Yixi shook off the tree earlier on his shoulder, and carefully walks in to check it out. Just seconds after he enters, the red-eyed demon statues all come to life and attack him, but when Shu's corpse dog dagger pops out of his chest to automatically fight them off, the statues realize they're facing someone who'll easily whoop their butts and retreat. Shortly after scaring the statues off, Shu continues observing their body and forces all the statues to surrender their magic spears to him. Meanwhile, Fei and Bai slowly start losing momentum in their battle against the infantry zombies just because of their overwhelming numbers. They try calling Isi for help, but Isi ignores them and focuses on getting the zombie general's spear first. Unfortunately for him, the moment he grabs the spear, the zombie general catches up to him and releases his aura dragons to stop him. Around that same time, Cao notices Fei and his partners getting surrounded and overwhelmed by several infantry zombies. So, to protect them, she freezes time and swiftly eliminates all the zombies. Then she unfreezes time to make it look like she destroyed them in an instant. While Bai stares at her in admiration, the zombie general suddenly suspects something really sinister is happening inside one of the rooms in his castle. As such, he holds Ishi down with his aura dragons, gets his spear back, and walks further into the castle to make sure nobody's snooping around. However, before he goes far, Ishi frees himself from the hold of the aura dragons and yanks the spear back from his hand. As he trash-talks the zombie general, Cao destroys a few more infantry zombies and gets to a higher vantage point to search for Shu, only to realize that he's nowhere to be found. By the time Shu enters a dark, secret room in the hall, the zombie general panics. So, to stop Shu from finding the real Formation Eye, he instantly stops fighting with Yichi and runs as fast as he can to get there on time. For some context, Yichi reveals that the ruin is supposed to vanish into nothingness the moment a human touches the Formation Eye, but since he now has the spear and nothing's happening, he realizes he was wrong all along and then follows the zombie general to the hall. Getting there, the zombie general has his demon statues surrounding him to keep him busy, and then continues searching for Shu. Before long, he finds Shu in the secret room trying to hold a golden box called the Mountain and River Seal, which happens to be the real Formation Eye, and lunges at him to stop him. Unfortunately for him, it was already too late because the moment Shu touches the seal, the entire ruin implodes into it, and Fei, the students, and his colleagues are teleported back to the real world. About an hour later, Jiang rushes into one of the mobile hospitals on site and asks an injured Liu if he's seen Shu ever since they came back. Around the time Liu says no, Cao sneaks off to personally search for Shu, while Ishi runs away to discuss the aftermath of the expedition with Ting and Shi. Moments later, Jiang runs into Fei's tent, where he finds Fei collecting and appraising the students' weapons, and reports Shu's absence to him. Hearing this, Fei crashes out, thinking Shu died in the implosion incident, but just when the other students start trash-talking him, he strolls in looking like $1 million and trolls all his haters. After reuniting with Jiang, Shu approaches Fei, trolls Liu as usual, and surrenders all 5 spears to be appraised. After that, he takes a walk into the deep woods and somehow manages to find Xiaoyu sitting on the branch of a large tree, waiting for him. Given the large amounts of negative emotion points he's earned off Xiaoyu so far, Shu expects her to give him a hard time, but to his utmost surprise, Xiaoyu only kicks his head and checks to make sure he's okay, then she gives him an attitude, just out of petty anger. Seeing this, Shu promises to make it up to her by taking her out for a delicious duck soup dinner the next day, and almost instantly, Xiaoyu's frown disappears. With that settled, Shu and his little sister return to their house. But when they get there, Shu locks all their openings and has Xiaoyu summon her zombie servant. After she summons him, he then conjures 2 small pearls, one black and the other brighter, tells Xiaoyu that they're food for her zombie servant, and then reveals that he made them from the absorbed energies of the zombies and the spy leader's spirit, Zhao. However, the moment he forces the black orb down the zombie's throat, the servant gets a little violent and lets out a harmless scream, after which Xiaoyu dispels it. Following this, Shu gives his little sister 2 of the apple fruits he brought back from the ruin, but while she eats them, the chipmunk jumps down from Shu's shoulder and crashes out at Xiaoyu for eating its fruit. Intrigued by its cuteness, Xiaoyu fondles the chipmunk's fluffy cheeks, names it Shu, and forces it into submission by bribing it with a potato chip. About an hour later, Shu retires to his bedroom and sends his soul into the alternate dimension inside the Mountain and River Seal to explore it. When Shu finds his soul floating over his entire city, he realizes that the seal is a divine object that can observe the earth and returns to his real body after analyzing some of the spiritual aura also present in the air. Not long after, he notices a void in the bottom section of the seal, which happens to be like an interdimensional storage space, and sends his soul in there to keep on exploring it. Within minutes of his arrival, he finds 2 large doors and opens them a little bit, only to peek inside and find the same castle as the one he found in the ruin before it disappeared, stationed there. However, as he thinks of his next move, Xiaoyu pulls him back to his real body, worried that he might have gotten in trouble again. After assuring her that he's doing fine, Shu promises to buy new appliances for their house, and then ascertains that they'll be traveling all over the world soon. Elsewhere, Ting and Shi meet to discuss the aftermath of their recent expedition. After failing to acquire the formation eye for the network, she suspects that it was stolen by either the zombie general or Zhao. Hearing this, Ting tells him he's already sent people to search for the spy in the city, so there's nothing to worry about. Moving on, the duo discusses Shu and Xiao, their new prodigies, and also anticipates the change that'll be happening once the next ruin appears on Earth. That brings us to the end of the video. What do you think happens next for Shu? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want more anime recaps like these, watch this video instead.